This is a shipping container. It's a high cube. That means it's about a 9-foot ceiling, it's 40 feet long, and it weighs 8,800 pounds. I've got to move it, oh, I don't know, 200 yards. I got a guy that wants to rent this, and he wants to be able to get to it, and I've got to move it, reconfigure my fence. My excavator won't even shake it. I'm going to jack this up and rig up an axle. I'm going to put a dolly, a Connex dolly under this thing so I can shuffle it off onto the property wherever I want it for this guy, and if somebody else wants it in a different spot, at least then it'll be up on wheels. I have no idea. I don't know how far back from the end to set it. You might give me some advice on that. I'm thinking maybe 60% of the way back. I want to have about a ton that I lift out there with my excavator, and so I'm going to give it my best shot and figure out some sort of an attachment to the substructure on this thing. So this is the axle. I think it's just perfect. Got it from my brother-in-law, Jack. I'm going to stretch it out, figure out some way to get it under that thing, lower it down, and pull it across the property, I hope. So that high lift jack won't fit, but I've got this little ace in the hole. My friend Brian Blaylock sent me this. It's a cool little hydraulic jack with a foot that'll lift from 0. Right down at the floor, it'll lift a bunch. And so this is a good spot to break this thing in. Gotta go. Automatic return with those springs. Man, that's nice. Yep, that's about maxed. Let's give it a bite. This thing's not going up evenly on both sides. I've got to bring that side up some more, which means the whole thing's going to come up about 3 inches, and then I think I can slide that across. Okay, here's the situation. I've got this thing up in the air far enough that at about 14 feet, it's about 16 inches up in the air. That might be enough room to get the axle under there once I get that figured out. But the thing that I need a little help with is this. This thing weighs 9,000 pounds, 40 feet long. So when it's sitting on the ends, it's, you know, it's 4,500 pounds on each end. I get that. And if you support it at the middle, it's 9,000 pounds in the middle. I need to know how heavy it's going to be on the far end when I'm pulling it with my excavator if I get the axle put in at about 13 feet. Now, I don't think that's a linear relationship. And I'm guessing it's going to be about maybe 2,500 pounds down there, something like that. I don't know. But what I'm going to do right now is let it down. You know, it's held up on this end. I'm going to let it down so that it's bearing at that 13.5, 14 foot mark. I've got a pivot on each side. And then I'm going to walk the excavator around there and just get a hold of it and see how it comes up off the ground. We'll give it the old hip shot and make our determination. But in the comments, those of you who can manipulate numbers better than I can, and since I'm thinking this is some sort of differentiation equation or something, give me an idea of how much that towing end is going to weigh if I pop that axle in there around 13 or 14 feet. Man, this little jack is nice. All right, I think we're almost down on our pivot points. We're down on the pivots. We're free as a bird here. We've got a little bit of weight right here. I'm going to free this up, then walk the excavator around and see what the other end feels like. All right, I've got it rigged. I've got some clearance under here, so if I can lift it on the other end, we won't get hung up. I've got the pivot points established. The beast is resting on one on each side, about the same distance, 13.5 feet, right there. And right down here, I've got the trusty Kubota rigged up. We're gonna see if we can overcome gravity. No doubt about it, it's still heavy. I'm gonna shorten up this D-ring spreader chain arrangement so I'm down low so I can lift it with the main boom, I think. And I'm definitely gonna put the axle on this side of that pivot point, try to shave off 500 or 600 pounds. But I think if I can do that, I should be able to walk this thing across the field. No real idea at all if this is going to work, but probably by this time tomorrow I will know. Well, this thing's pretty heavy. I've got clearance. I'm going to see if I can lay it down, run it, come along through from the other side and find something to pull against to slide it on under there. Fingers crossed. Okay, that's one. It dawned on me that I didn't want to try to push drill bits through steel upside down where I can't even push on them. So I rigged up a little pry. It worked okay with that 3/16. I'm more than a little apprehensive about doing it with the whole hog, but win, lose, or draw, it's time to do it. That makes me want to crow a little bit. So I built this handle that'll slip around that handle on the drill so it can't twist, and looks like it's going to work. Okay, that's a win. That was easy enough. I'm going to try another one. Try it. Beautiful. We're not driving very far, and we're not driving very fast, so I think that'll be all right. This thing works pretty good, or at least it has up till now. Well, it's on rubber. I got to let it down and see if my excavator will drag it. We're going to go slow. To say this is a sketchy solution is a drastic understatement, but sometimes sketchy is the way to go. All right, I'm going to lower it. I've got these jacks at max extension. I don't know if the tires will get onto the ground before the midspan of the unit gets onto that beam. We'll find out in a second. Easy does it. Well, it's down on these single tires, 3,700 pound rated. I would say it's probably got about 3,800 pounds. That beautiful wannabe axle seems to be dealing with it just fine. I may detect a little bow, but I'm sure it looks good with a GoPro. Looks like it's gonna work. I've got to pull that beam out that it was resting on this end. We'll get a pickaroon for that, and we're off to the races. That's it. I got that thing moved, and I'll be able to put it where I need it, I don't know, in the next 30 days or so when I'm situating it out in the field. I could have never done this without that excavator. It has just magnified my capacity. And as I think about that, I couldn't have done it without this little collection of used and worn out and new tools that have come to me and that I've found and seen over the years that my dad had and that I've acquired, some of which have been sent to me, like this nifty little toe jack. Didn't know it existed. That makes me think that the key to becoming a productive person starts with being curious about tools. Not in having the tool, but being curious about them. And seeing one and identifying one and seeing people use tools you may not have and filing it away so that when the problem comes up or the project or the opportunity, that little bell will go off and say, wait a minute, they make a tool for that. Or ideally, wait a minute, I have a tool that will work for that even if it was intended to be used in something else. I've realized that having tools changes what I think of as design solutions, changes what I think of as actual production processes. Tools and understanding them and being curious about them turn us into a more complete person. So don't be afraid to stop by a garage sale. Don't be afraid to surf Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace looking for the tools you're curious about that someday, sometime, might get you or somebody else out of a jam. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.